Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Jesse Laval, and today we're diving into one of the most crucial aspects of wildlife photography, capturing tack-sharp images. If you've ever come home from a shoot only to find your shots are blurry or not as crisp as you'd hoped, this video's for you. From choosing the right gear to nailing your settings in challenging conditions, I'll be sharing everything you need to know to get razor-sharp shots every time. Let's jump right in. Section 1. Choosing the right gear. 1. Camera body. The first step to tack-sharp images is having a camera that can handle fast action. This typically means a DSLR or mirrorless camera that has a fast and reliable autofocus system. Look for bodies that have multiple autofocus points, good low-light performance, and high continuous shooting speeds. For instance, something that can shoot 8 to 10 frames per second or faster is ideal for capturing split-second wildlife action. 2. Lenses and focal length. Next up, lenses for wildlife photography. You'll often want a telephoto lens, something in the range of 300, 400, or 600 millimeter. If you need extra reach, consider using a teleconverter, but remember, it reduces the amount of light entering the lens and may slightly affect sharpness. You'll need to balance the benefits of extra reach with potential image quality trade-offs. 3. Image stabilization. An image-stabilized lens can be a game changer, especially if you're shooting handheld. This feature helps reduce motion blur caused by camera shake, letting you shoot at slightly slower shutter speeds without losing crispness. However, for extremely fast action like birds in flight, stabilization can only do so much, so you'll need to pay attention to shutter speed as well. 4. Tripods and monopods. If you're going to be stationary, like in a hide or blind, a sturdy tripod with a gimbal head can give you the ultimate stability for sharp shots. For more mobile shooting, monopods offer a good compromise between stability and maneuverability. Ultimately, there's no single perfect setup for everyone. Choose gear that fits your budget, is comfortable to carry in the field, and has the features you need for your style of wildlife shooting. Section 2. Shutter speed and freezing action. 1. Why shutter speed matters. Wildlife rarely sits still for long, and many animals move quickly, especially birds in flight or predators chasing prey. That's why shutter speed is your best friend. A fast shutter speed, like 1/1000th of a second or higher, will freeze motion and reduce the risk of motion blur. 2. Choosing the right speed. The exact shutter speed you need depends on your subject. For slow-moving animals or large mammals that are just walking around, 1/500th of a second might suffice. But for birds in flight, you'll often need 1/2000th of a second or even faster to capture every feather in razor-sharp detail. Always err on the side of caution with faster shutter if you can manage it. 3. Adjust ISO. To achieve these high shutter speeds, you'll sometimes have to increase your ISO. Modern cameras handle ISOs quite well, so don't be afraid to push it up above 1600, 3200, or even 6400 in dimmer conditions. A little bit of noise is far less noticeable than the softness caused by motion blur. Remember, if you have to choose between noise and motion blur, always choose noise. You can reduce noise in post-processing, but you can't recover detail from a blurry image. Section 3. Aperture and depth of field. 1. Balancing sharpness and background blur. A wide aperture like f2.8 or f4 helps blur out distracting backgrounds, making your subject pop. However, at these apertures, your depth of field is extremely shallow. If an animal's face is angled or it's a larger subject, you might get only part of it in focus. 2. Finding the sweet spot. Many lenses have a sweet spot for maximum sharpness, often 1 to 2 stops above the widest aperture. For example, if you have an f2.8 lens, try shooting around f4 or f5.6 to get a sharper image edge to edge, while still keeping a nice bokeh behind your subject. 3. When to stop down. If you're photographing, say, a large bird with wings spread out or a group of animals, consider stopping down to f6, f8, or even f11. That ensures you'll have enough depth of field to keep the subject in focus from beak to tail or to get multiple animals in frame sharply. A quick tip. Always check your images on the back of your camera. Zoom into the eyes, and if they're sharp, you're on the right track. If not, adjust your aperture or your focus point accordingly. Section 4. Autofocus modes and settings. 1. Continuous autofocus, AI servo or AFC. For wildlife, especially moving subjects, switch your camera to continuous autofocus, AI servo on Canon, AFC on Nikon and Sony, and many other mirrorless systems. This mode tracks your subject as it moves and continuously updates focus until you take the shot. 2. Back button focus. Consider back button focusing, which separates the focusing function from the shutter button. This allows you to focus with your thumb and shoot with your index finger, giving you greater control and preventing the camera from refocusing every time you press the shutter. 3. Autofocus area modes. Test out different autofocus area modes like zone autofocus, dynamic autofocus, or wide tracking to see which works best for your subject. Smaller, fast-moving subjects might require a smaller autofocus area, while larger animals might be more forgiving, letting you use a wider zone. Autofocus settings. Autofocus settings can be a game of trial and error, so practice with your camera in different scenarios. Birds, mammals, even your pets at home to get a feel for which mode locks focus best on moving subjects. Section 5. Stabilization and handheld techniques. 1. Using a tripod or monopod. A tripod or monopod can drastically reduce camera shake, helping you to capture sharper images, especially with longer lenses. If you're setting up in a hide for birds or a waterhole for larger animals, a tripod with a gimbal head is your best bet. Gimbal heads make panning and tilting much smoother, so you can track animals more easily. 2. Handheld techniques. When you don't have time to set up a tripod or it's simply not practical, learn to brace your body for extra stability. Tuck your elbows in against your torso. Keep your feet shoulder width apart and support the lens barrel with your left hand. If there's a tree, rock, or railing nearby, use it to anchor yourself. 3. Burst mode. Another trick for handheld shooting is to use continuous shooting, burst mode. Fire off short bursts of 3 to 5 shots. Often the middle frame tends to be sharper because there's less camera movement after you press the shutter. Practice these positions at home or in your backyard. Good technique can significantly reduce motion blur, even at slower shutter speeds. Section 6. Patience, timing, and animal behavior. 1. Know your subject. Wildlife photography isn't just about gear settings, it's also about understanding animal behavior. If you know when an eagle is likely to dive or when a lion might yawn or roar, you can be prepared, and that split-second anticipation can mean the difference between a good photo and a once-in-a-lifetime shot. 2. Patience is key. Wild animals are unpredictable. You might wait hours for a single shot. Bring extra batteries, memory cards, and snacks, and don't get discouraged if nothing happens immediately. The best wildlife photographers are often those who are patient and observant. 3. Timing your shots. When action does occur, it can happen very quickly. Keep your camera powered on, your finger near the shutter, and your settings dialed in. This way you won't waste precious seconds scrambling to get ready. Spending time in the field also makes you more in tune with your environment. You'll notice small details that can lead to big photographic memories. Section 7. Composition and framing for sharpness. 1. Focus on the eyes. One of the most important elements of a sharp wildlife photo is having the eye in focus. The eyes convey emotion and connection with the viewer. If the eye is sharp, your image will feel more powerful, even if other parts of the animal are slightly out of focus. 2. Use composition guides. Try the rule of thirds for balanced framing, or place your subject's eye in a strong focal point. Also consider leading lines if available, to draw attention straight to your subject. 3. Leave space for movement. If your subject is moving, give it space to move into the frame. That makes the image feel more dynamic. Don't crop too tightly on a moving subject. Allowing space can also help maintain clarity, especially if you recrop later in post. Section 8. Post-processing for extra sharpness. 1. Basic sharpening. Even the best shot images can benefit from a little sharpening in post. Whether you're using Lightroom, Photoshop, or another software, focus on the eyes and fine details. Go easy on global sharpening. Too much can introduce halos and artifacts. 2. Noise reduction. If you shot at a high ISO, some noise reduction can help clean up your image. Be careful not to overdo it, as you can lose detail and end up with plastic-looking images. Strike a balance between noise removal and preserving texture. 3. Cropping and reframing. Sometimes you'll need to crop in for better composition. Keep in mind that heavy cropping reduces resolution and can make your image look soft and overdone. Use the highest resolution you can, and only crop to enhance your composition or remove distractions. Remember, post-processing can't fix an out-of-focus or motion-blurred photo. Always aim to get it right in the camera first. And there you have it! Everything you need to know to capture tack-sharp wildlife images. From selecting the right gear and dialing in fast shutter speeds, to understanding animal behavior and fine-tuning your photos in post, these tips will help you consistently nail those breathtaking shots. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more photography and wildlife content.